Welcome, everybody, to Offside and Out of Bounds. We are here today to talk about the NBA trade deadline. I mean, huge day. It's I think, probably the biggest trade deadline, probably amongst the big four. We're going to cover off that. We're going to cover off all the trades, or some of the trades that were kind of the big pieces here for us, and then look at some other stuff going on in the NBA, including the playoff format and some of our personal power rankings. If you do enjoy this video, please, at the end, we ask you to like, subscribe to the channel. Feel free to share and comment with us as well. I'm Adam.
I'm Junior.
Let's go. Okay, Junior, let's just jump right in. What did you think about, before we actually bring up the slides here, just was the activity that you expected today? Did you get what you were looking for from the NBA trade deadline?
I think for all the hoopla and the hype that's been going on for this in the last week or so, it was kind of things leaked in, leaked out. There wasn't anything big that just made me jump up and go, oh my God. Even though you kind of felt like it was coming, there were those peak periods and then a nice stretch where it just got quiet and there wasn't much going on. Looking through all the different broadcasters that were, just blasting this stuff out there, and it didn't really hit anything that I was looking to happen. I think there were a lot of teams that were just standing pat, obviously teams that are way out of the playoff race. And there were even some that were in the playoff race and close to the playoff race that really didn't do much. So I think overall it just was a bit of a dud, but, pieces still got moved and, the deadline still happened. So you gotta live with it.
I think I'm going to agree with you there. There was a lot of hoopla, a couple days leading up to this, some buyout talk, some marquee players to make some teams that much stronger to really make that push and that run for the updated and changed playoffs, which we're going to talk about. But I just didn't get what I was looking for this year, unfortunately, which is okay. There was some players that were moved, and let's take a look at some of those now. So let me bring up our slides here. Okay, so first up, we had the Vucevic, kind of the marquee piece on that trade, and then Orlando and Chicago. What did you like about this move? Who won this trade, in your opinion?
Well, who won the trade? Off the bat, you can say Chicago did. They got the most dynamic player in the trade, and when you really look at the pieces they gave up, they didn't really give up that much to get it. The great thing about first-round picks is, they're first-round picks, but there's no guarantee that those develop into anything. It's just that future consideration almost. Yeah. But, in Vucevic, you're getting a guy who's putting in a double-double a night with over 20 and over 10, and he does distribute the ball well, so you're going to get a lot of that inside-out work. I think this makes Chicago a more dynamic team, and kind of sitting where they are in the playoffs, this is showing that they're serious about making that push and getting to that next level.
Yeah, Vucevic is such a great player, right? His impact that he's going to have in Chicago is definitely going to be felt amongst the players and fans in that organization. Over 40 plus from three, and over just under 50% from the field goal range. He's got a lot going for him. Obviously, Magic they were doing a lot around this trade. They've been very active, and it looks like they're in basically a rebuild at this point, right? They're looking to pick up some young players that are going to take them into, 2025 and beyond.
Yeah. Burn it down, build it up.
Yeah, which is not untypical of that team either.
No. But, the two pieces they did get that aren't, bill of goods in terms of those draft picks, I think Wendell Carter Jr., he's definitely a serviceable player. He's averaging over 10 and almost 8 rebounds a game, so he's going to give you some of that inside-out presence that, this team is obviously going to lose in Vucevic, but I don't see Orlando being competitive right now, or maybe next year. But we'll see. I think still it did what Orlando needed to do, which was get rid of their assets and try and get as much in return. And you'll see a lot of teams were not giving up the bank to land that rental as of yet this year. So I think that's where a lot of these deals may have fallen apart, where teams just were not getting what they wanted. But I don't think Orlando was in a position to really care that much. Just try to maximize every trade they could.
And the fact that they probably won't, position themselves very well in the next season or two is going to look good for those first round picks, maybe to get a lottery pick in there or whatnot. Okay, cool. Are you satisfied with this one here? Let's move on to the next.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so this was a big trade. Kind of came out, kind of at the end there. Kelly Olynyk, Bradley, and a draft pick swap, which is okay. But Miami got Oladipo and, that same draft pick swap. What did you think about this? I think we talked a little bit offline, basically saying that, the Houston experiment is not working. So maybe talk about that a little bit and your feelings on that.
Yeah, so, I mean, from the Miami side, they really didn't give up that much to get Oladipo. But I think there was a design to that. Bradley wasn't exactly a to-die-for second unit player. His production was nowhere near Olynyk, and they played around the same minutes. Yeah. So Olynyk, you're getting about 10 points, 5-6 boards, a couple of assists. And I think he was playing around 20 to 26 minutes a game. Bradley, a little bit less points, not much rebounds, not much assists, so he's not really contributing that much in the 20 minutes he's playing.
Yeah.
But then when you get what Miami's getting, it's a name. It's Victor Oladipo, but at the same time, he's coming from a situation in Indiana where he was the guy. He was the guy that got the ball. He had the biggest percentage of the shots, and the ball was in his hand a lot. He went to Houston, where now he was competing for the ball with John Wall.
John Wall, yeah.
So now you got two guys who were probably eating up 60% of the possessions of that team.
Yep.
And it just wasn't working out. I mean, yeah, they were both averaging over 20, but that team was really going nowhere. Now, take Oladipo, put him in Miami, and he's in an even worse situation.
A lot of players want the ball there.
Exactly. So Jimmy Buckets is probably going to have to knock him upside the head a little bit just to get his head straight and understand that he's going to be coming off the bench. Now, you're looking at him, Hero, Duncan Robinson. These are guys that are, they're going to want those second unit minutes, and yeah. I don't know if Victor coming at this point in the season is going to mix well with this unit yet. So it's going to take a while for him to kind of mesh in well. And I just don't know if he's going to fit that Miami style, which is, straight up defense, wear you down, score with you, and, control that pace of play. It doesn't seem like that prototypical Oladipo type of team for him to play on.
I guess the positive thing here for Miami is that he's basically a rental. So if he doesn't fit in well there, they don't get what they want out of him. I mean, he's going to be a free agent. He can, kind of go where he likes, and maybe that's not Miami, and maybe it is. We'll have to see how that kind of works out for them. But does it make Miami that much of a better team, though? Ultimately, at the end of it all,
I think what it does is it actually moves the needle back a bit. I think that Olynyk's defense, his ability to run guys off the line, and his size is something that might be missed by Miami. Mm-hmm. I don't think Houston really cares about that because they've already got Christian Wood there, so they're not really worried about Olynyk. But I think Miami's going to lose a little bit. He is smaller, and if you look at Miami, they've got a lot of guys that are in that 6'5", 6'6" range. So his size is not going to be something that's going to push this team over the top. I think they needed a little more rebounding because they've got the outside shoot, they got the slash. I think they needed more rebounding, and I think they may have taken a step back on that with this trade.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I actually think that if Victor comes with his head on right and he knows what's going to be expected of him, I actually think this could be positive for Miami in my feelings. I think maybe they can continue to work inside and out a lot more with them, and if he does end up coming off the bench, I think that's going to help that second unit a lot and give them a lot of energy. But let's see. Okay, moving on. We got Aaron Gordon. Again, Magic here. They were very active. They sent Aaron Gordon and Gary Clark over to the Nuggets. And then we got Gary Harris and RJ Hampton coming back along with the 2025 first-round pick. Aaron Gordon, he was very vocal about himself wanting a trade and getting out of Orlando. What does this do for the Nuggets?
Well, I'll tell you the one thing it does for the Nuggets, and I think that was the concern that they had and they needed to address, and I think they did it. And that was getting Michael Porter Jr. away from having to play against these big power forwards. They want to hide him. This guy's got a great shot. He gets in the mix. But the problem is sometimes he tends to get clamped down by the bigger forwards, and he can't get into where he wants to kind of hit that mid-range and then get in. So I think what this does is it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Michael Porter Jr. Aaron Gordon, almost 15 this year, 6'4", very serviceable numbers.
Yeah.
And you could even tell towards the closer we got to the deadline, I think Gordon was kind of maybe, getting cold feet. Maybe he didn't want to go. But he found himself into a good situation here. You're off a team that is not going to be anywhere close to the playoffs to a team that is in the heat of the race and considered one of the favorites in the West. So I think he found himself in a good position. But I also think this trade, Orlando is getting something back that, a lot of people aren't talking about, which is RJ Hampton.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So now you're going to have Cole Anthony and RJ Hampton as your backcourt. That's going to be very dynamic for years to come. So it's not like Denver, fleeced Orlando in this trade. They gave up a very young, promising rookie. Now, granted, he's 2 points, 2 rebounds, not even an assist, but he's not getting minutes.
It's the long-term upside, right? And that's what Magic is looking to do long-term, is to build up those young players, right?
So, I mean, if you look at what Orlando did today, one thing they did do was they secured that backcourt for a long time, which at the end of the day is good. So now they've got that youth to build around.
Yeah, and some picks too, so.
Yeah, and the funny thing today is every guy in the NBA named Gary got traded.
Moving on then, we'll go right to the next Gary then. So Gary Trent Jr., not to be confused with Gary Trent Sr., who was also traded from Portland to Toronto 41 games into the season X amount of years ago. So they also got Rodney Hood from the Portland Trailblazers and gave up a fan favorite, Norm Powell. I got mixed emotions on this because, I, as a Raptor fan, and what he's been able to do for our team and the community as well. I've really appreciated Norm, both as a person and a player. Playoff Powell, selfishly, I hope that it's not the case when he goes over to Portland. But I think this is actually really good for Portland. I think this is going to give them a lot more. I know they're a little heavy in the 2-3 spot, but if he ends up mixing it up with McCollum and Dame, I think these guys can really run up the score, and they're going to be they all can slash and they can all shoot.
For sure.
So what do you think about this trade? Who won this trade, and what are your thoughts ultimately on how this positions each of these teams?
Well, I mean, obviously a lot of Raptors fans are upset right now. This is a homegrown guy. He was picked up on draft night several years back in a Grievous Vasquez trade.
Yeah.
And he's come a long way in his career. He's really developed here. He's taken every step in his career and improved every year here. And, he built himself. But the one thing you have to understand is that he was set to decline his player option at $11 million. Norm hits the open market in the summer. He's going to command on the cheap 18, 19 a year,
20 million, yeah.
Up to 21, 22.
Yep.
Raptors aren't in the position to give him that money. And as you can see, everyone else on the Raptors, Siakam, OG, Van Vliet, they secured that bag.
Yep.
And there's not going to be enough for Powell to secure that bag. So understandable, you had to make this move. Again, what they're getting back in Gary Trent Jr., what I look at in terms of his style, his play, is he's Norm 2 years ago.
Yep.
So he's
15 points, a couple rebounds, an assist or two.
So if we're going to basically get Norm, rewind the clock 2 years, and have control of the contract, friendly contract, then you want to go with that. Rodney Hood was definitely more known as that defensive lockdown specialist. He's not bringing a whole lot in this, but obviously the way salary cap dictates things, you got to match salary. So it's almost like he was a tossed in this trade. But, he's not that unserviceable. 5 points, 2 rebounds, a little over assist in under 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think he's going to see much time on the floor in Toronto. He's definitely a pretty good buyout candidate, considering that we're already guard heavy.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got, Malachi Finn in 905, who I think is coming up. You've got Alize, he's coming up. So there's guys coming up for the Raps, and I think that's why a lot of the other moves that they made were to basically clear roster space. And then, obviously create some space just in case you can hit the buyout market. But, I think both teams got exactly what they needed to do. And you're dead on in saying that Norm, if he has that ability to mesh well with Dame and CJ, that team is they're going to be primed for a nice run.
Those fourth quarters on that team with those three guys on the floor, it's going to be
three shooters.
It's going to be a real problem. Guys that can go to the bucket. I mean, we all know what Norm's capable of in and around the basket, right? I wonder, because obviously, Lowry here did not get traded, which is why I brought the jersey out, because I couldn't in some ways be happier.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if, there's a potential to maybe look at extending Lowry's contract, and maybe that's why they wanted to also move Norm out, because they're not going to be able to command him next year anyways with what he's looking for.
Yeah.
And, what do you think about the Raptors continuing with Lowry past this season?
The one thing that people have to remember about Masai is sometimes you won't understand what he's doing or why he's doing certain things. But you just have to give him blind trust. There's no one in the NBA that is going to question any move that this guy makes. And I think I almost started to get this feeling that, because everyone was saying that Masai is holding up the market. He's holding up the market with the Lowry stuff. He's holding it up. He's not making moves because he's holding it up. And I started to think, is Masai purposely holding up the market so he can get other deals done to just fleece everybody? And then I'm not trading Kyle, sorry, because we didn't get the package we wanted. It didn't go down like that, but they did make room in setting Terrence Davis and Matt Thomas out. But I think with Lowry, he's a guy who loves the city. He's huge in the community.
Massive. Yeah.
Does nothing but rep this city. And, I think in terms of his career here, it's gonna go past him being a player. I could see this guy joining the coaching staff or the front office or something. He loves this city and specifically this team and the way it's been built, the team culture here. He's a big part to do with that. Yep. So, if they're going to extend him for a couple of years and then they need that cash that they were going to give to Norm to extend him for a couple of years, he's the GOAT, right? He's the greatest Raptor of all time. So if you're going to do right by him, do right by him. Yeah. Because we didn't do right by DeMar. So you might as well make certain that we don't do that again.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, DeMar was a tough pill to swallow, but it did bring us a championship with a rookie coach in Nick Nurse, and I got the parade flag over there, which I couldn't have been happier to be in attendance for that. It's sad to see Norm go, but I wish him well in Portland, and you know what, I think it's actually a good landing spot for him. I actually think he'll have some fun over there with those guys, and I expect him to continue scoring. Upwards of 15, 20 points a game. So
for sure.
Okay, awesome. So I believe this is the last one that we're covering here, which is Mavericks and New Orleans. New Orleans sent over JJ Redick and his contract, along with Melli, and in return they received Johnson, Wandu, and a second-round pick. Redick, obviously, he's an elite shooter, and definitely opens up the floor for Doncic and others at Dallas by adding him to the rotation. What do you think about this trade? Who won this trade?
Well, the way I look at this is Redick is something that the Mavs needed. Once you get into the playoff time, you need shooters and tons of them, and guys that can hit with frequency. And the great thing about Redick is this guy hits at a high clip. He's great at the free throw line. He's defensive. He's responsible on the defensive side of the ball as well.
Yep, that's true.
He kind of got buried in New Orleans. Big youth movement there. Their huge concern is making certain that there's so much talent around Zion. I'll tell you what a great way to build a Zion is win. It doesn't matter who you have around him. Once you get that taste of winning, you want to get better because you want to win more. I think it was a mistake that they're starting to look at trading every guy out of that roster because they want better people around Zion. They need to get their heads checked. But anyway, you got a guy coming over in James Johnson who I absolutely love. This guy will break your neck.
Actually, because he's a black belt.
He is, and he will kill you. He's a bad expletive deleted.
Yes.
But again, he got buried in Dallas because dynamic team. There's too many guys in front of him. So I think getting back into New Orleans, he might see a little bit more playing time. But again, he's probably just going to get buried on the bench, which is unfortunate because, he's a great guy.
He's got a lot to offer for sure. I mean,
He does.
I love his hustle. I don't think a lot of teams really see the value in him. He had some good years, I think, when Miami first got a hold of him.
Yeah.
I think they were playing him very well, but they've changed and they've evolved as a team, right? So who do you think won this trade? It's like an even?
I would say in terms of you're looking at the players themselves, Dallas will probably win this because when you look at Niccolo Melli, he's not playing that much, but the guy's 6'9". So you're going to have more length to come off the bench and maybe, relieve, AK-47, Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it.
Yeah,
Porzingis? Him.
Porzingis. You can call him the unicorn if you like.
Yeah, the unicorn. To give him some minutes, but still keep that length and that size on the floor. So I think this does what it needed to do for Dallas, what they needed to address. And I think, the Pels did get a second-round pick. I mean, you don't really want a second-round pick from a team that's at the top of the West because those picks are going to be high first rounds. But, I think they did get something for Redick, who was a candidate on the buyout market. So
and they got rid of that contract, right?
They got rid of it. So, I think they both got what they wanted. So let's just call that right in half.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, let's move on to the buyout market. So a couple candidates here. Drummond, Aldridge, Redick, which got traded, Whiteside, and Cousins. I think the premier person here is Drummond. I just think he just offers so much to any team that he's going to be able to go to, mostly on the glass. But I mean, he's got a nice touch around the rim, which is going to bode well in terms of point production for any minutes that he's getting on any team. Who do you think is going to win these races? What are your thoughts around these guys and where they could end up?
The problem is all the information that I can see is everyone's talking about Lakers, Nets, and Heat because apparently they have all this cap space or whatever space they have to add these guys are.
Yep.
I don't see where they're going to get the minutes to add these guys, especially in LA when you've got, Ant Davis is coming back, LeBron's coming back. I don't, Trez is already there. I just don't see space for any of these guys there. And I mean, you're going to be burying guys on the bench and rolling them out when you're up 30 or down 30. It just doesn't make sense to kind of waste that. Brooklyn, same thing. Huge backload there. Miami, I mean, are you going to be jumping, Bam out and dropping one of these guys in? I mean, it could help. You lost your rebounding, so may as well pick some up.
Yep.
But the way I look at it, there's 4 big men there. Who are teams that need big men right now? The guys that didn't give up the most money for them. I think Toronto could definitely use a Drummond or a Whiteside, one of those guys that's going to definitely help them to make a bit of a playoff push.
Yep.
I think Boston might need one of them. They actually took a step back today, which is kind of strange when you pick up an Evan Fournier, but you're taking a step back because you got rid of Tice.
Raptor killer last season.
He's definitely
he was quiet, but he was a problem.
Yeah, he was. I think the only one on this list who I think might not get a home this year is DeMarcus Cousins for obvious reasons. The attitude, and it seems like everyone's trying to get him buried. Like the NBA just does not want him a part of this league.
Yep.
And I get it. He's very outspoken. He's very vocal. Can he give something to someone? He might, but it's going to be on his ticket. It's whether he wants to go or not. And I don't know if he's, if a Boston calls him up and says, hey, come on down, if he's going to jump at the opportunity because he's searching for rings. So, I mean,
players too, right? And he might not get along with those guys.
Exactly. So, I mean, if he gets a call from Brooklyn and they say, come on up, he might. If LA gives him a call, he'll probably go back there. If Miami gives him a call, he'd probably go there. So then it looks at, okay, you got LaMarcus, and everyone's talking about how Miami's already going to be going after him. So, I think all those guys' names will eventually get off the board. The only one that I'm not certain of is a DeMarcus.
Yeah, I think Miami will definitely add one of these players to that team. They're like you said, with Olynyk moving on, you're going to need someone to kind of fill that void. I mean, I think Drummond would be a lovely candidate for them down there. He would add a ton for them and really make them a competitor against, Brooklyn or Philly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's stop sharing this one for a moment here. We want to talk about the playoff format. You want to break that down for us?
Yes. So basically the way things are going to work is the top 10 teams in each conference are going to make it. Then what they're going to do is they're going to kind of take the 7 seed, 8 seed, 9 seed, 10 seed. They're going to do a little play-in tournament. So I think the way it's breaking down is the 7's playing the 10, the 8's playing the 9. The winner of those two games then get reseeded as the 7 and 8 seeds. So, if you're on that outside in that 11th spot, like the Raptors are about a game and a half out, there's still an opportunity. And, the Raps add someone, they could make a run. You look on the other side, you got Golden State there who didn't, I think they got rid of Wanamaker. So they didn't make a lot of moves. I think they're in a good spot out that way. But it's an interesting format. We'll kind of see how things work out. I mean, it kind of sucks if you're a 7 seed and you lose to a 10 seed and you had a guaranteed playoff spot and then you didn't. So I think at the end of the day, there might be some owners that are going to be a little bit pissed off with, how things ended up working out for them.
Yeah, I'm personally not a fan of this. I know it's worked well in Major League Baseball last year. And, I've seen this happen in other areas as well. But for me, again, you kind of touched on it, that if you're a 7 seed and it doesn't really matter how many games you're up on the 8 seed, 9 seed, or 10 seed, you're still forced to play in this one game kind of knockout, which I just don't like. I just don't like it. I don't think it's fair to the team or the players. If a couple bounces go the wrong way, I'm not, 100% against bringing this on, but I think you need to see like a best 2 out of 3. Give an opportunity a chance to kind of bounce back if you had an unfitting game for your team.
Yeah, no, I totally see it that way too. My only thing is with all these super teams that have been built, a lot of these mid-market teams are not going to have a shot at getting into into the second season. Yeah. And I mean, when you look at that, you're losing. I mean, obviously, as of right now, because of the pandemic, there's not a lot of fans in the stands. But as we get back to normal, that's a gate that, a Memphis could really use. They could use an extra 2 games of gate a year. The concessions, that money is needed. The contract money is needed. So I think expanding the playoff format is a good thing, as it's just giving us a bit more. And if you're at a 7 seed, you should beat a 10 seed. And if you're not going to beat a 10 seed, then maybe you shouldn't be there. Maybe you got lucky because it was a bad year for a lot of teams. But, I'm sure those 10 seeds are going to be sitting there going, let's go. Like, I want to get in this right now. And they're going to come hunting because it's like they've got that shot to get in there. So I kind of like it. It's just a little bit more drama for playoff season.
It's definitely more drama, definitely a bit of a gamble. But, we've covered the NCAA extensively here on Offside and Out of Bounds. And we've seen upsets. We've seen these things happen before. But these are not 82-game, or 72-game seasons where you're playing these teams and continually battling. So I'm not a fan of it, but let's see how the league continues on with that for, years to come, and see if that's going to be something that they're going to continue once, kind of everything settles back in and shakes back up. Let's jump into the power rankings here. So we have, so this is the West. So I have Lakers. I think we talked about this, but just for everybody watching, I didn't put my power rankings in terms of where I think they're going to finish. These are the teams that I think are the best in the West when it comes to playoff time. So I'm going with the Lakers, Clippers, the Suns, Utah, and Portland. And Junior, you want to go through your list?
Yeah, so I've got Utah at the top of the list, followed by the Clippers, Denver, Phoenix, and Dallas.
Yeah, so pretty different. I think we got Utah and Clippers that are lined up. How come you didn't have the Lakers in there? You don't think that they're going to be a power team in the West and probably go deep in the playoffs? My whole thing, finals?
My whole thing with the Lakers is they're a good team, but I think with just the injuries right now, their seeding is going to be really low, which means they're going to have a tougher matchup in that first round. So if they get into a first round matchup and there's going to be a lot of banging going on because these teams out west they're big boys.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of wear and tear on an already old James. That's a lot of wear and tear on an Anthony Davis who seems to get injured every year. So I don't know if it's going to be a long run for them, especially if they run into a Denver first round or a Utah first round where you've got some big bodies that are going to beast you down. And for me, that's why I have it set more like how you said, just strong teams. And any of the teams that I've picked there, they're big, they're physical, they rebound well, they can score the basketball, they're defensively responsible. So that's kind of where my power rankings are teams that I think are going to make a huge impact in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I just realized we also both have Phoenix there, and I think we like that young, dynamic team, and they got a lot going for them. And they've been bounced in the past, and I think they're gonna show something different this year, and I think they're gonna make it out of a round or two.
I think they finally put it together. Chris Paul's been having another amazing season. He's got so many pieces to toss around there. So it's good to have him in that kind of a position to see that he still got it after all these years,
I mean, one of the elite point guards, in NBA history. I'm confident in saying that Chris Paul has an IQ, like no other. And he's definitely helped some of the young fellas over there. And, he still has something to prove.
I think he does.
So... Okay, awesome. Let's take a look at the East here. Okay, so East. Kick mine off here first. So Brooklyn, Miami, Milwaukee, Philly, and Boston. And then you want to hit your list there?
Yeah, and I got Boston, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Miami, Atlanta.
Okay. Sorry, Brooklyn you have. I think you said Boston at the beginning.
Oh, sorry, Brooklyn.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Brooklyn's going to be very, very difficult to... to beat, I think, probably across the NBA. They basically have 5 All-Stars, which is a real good thing for them. I think health still needs to be the top priority for that team. Everybody needs to be healthy in the playoffs, but they have a lot going for them, and Harden is playing his heart out right now. He's showing people why he's always in the conversation for MVP. And maybe he wasn't a couple weeks ago, maybe even 3-4 weeks ago. I don't think people might have been talking about him that much. But I mean, he is really just going off on a tear. Once that team is full healthy and they've kind of had a few games, a few weeks to gel, come playoff time, this team's going to be very, very difficult to beat.
Yeah, totally agree with you.
Who else do you like in your top 5 there? Like, you have Atlanta there. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts around Atlanta.
For me, with Atlanta, they did just bring in Lou Will. Now that he's going to be able to get those lemon pepper wings every day, being in Atlanta. Yeah. They didn't do much, They got rid of Rondo, which was a bit of a surprising move to me. But when you got Clint Capella, who's just a rebounding machine.
An animal.
And, you've got 2 guys on this team, and him and Trey, they're literally at a double-double at halftime. So for me, they're a dynamic team. They're sneaky good. They're long. They've got a great bench. I think if a couple guys can get their shots down, they can make some moves. And
they're pretty quiet, right? They're not a loud talking team. They just go out there and they put it all on the floor and they show you what they're made of, right? So you gotta appreciate and love a team like that. So I really like what Atlanta has done, and Lou Will, a perennial 6th man of the year. There's lots of clubs for him to go to in Atlanta, so he's going to feel real good walking into the court every day and practice and so on. I just want to touch on Milwaukee here for a minute,
sure,
because we both have them sitting in the 3 spot.
It was hard to put them there.
It's kind of like a sigh, right? It's like they're always kind of there, but do they ever have enough to get to the Eastern Conference Finals? Are they going to be good enough to get to the Eastern Conference Finals this year?
My concern with them all the time, in the playoffs, you've got a couple of games where Middleton's going to pitch in and he's going to do some scoring, and Robin Lopez is going to come out of nowhere and he's going to get you 20. Yeah. And there's all this other going on, and then all of a sudden they switch back to it's Giannis time, and then everything just seems to fall apart.
Looks like a high school basketball game when you have that one star player, right?
everyone else is 5'6", and this guy's 6'4".
Yeah.
It's exactly what it ends up looking like. I don't want to jump ahead of myself. I would have put them higher if I saw something different from them this year, but it's the same old stuff. They did pick up PJ Tucker, so hopefully he's going to instill some kind of defensive responsibility in this team.
A little grit.
Yeah. So, he's a nice piece to have coming off the bench for them, but, let's just pretend that we're in the show me state, and I'm not going to move them until they show me something.
Yeah. Fair enough. Just like as a final thought here before we sign off, I'm just going to hide our piece here. So as a final sign off here, if you had to pick one team that is not currently in the playoff picture, and let's stick with like the 8 seed and up playoff picture, who do you think is a dark horse kind of team that can maybe squeak out, a couple of good runs over the next 30 games? And get into that playoff picture and maybe get into that play-in tournament?
For me, I gotta say it's the Raptors. Not just because I'm a fan, but if you look at what they did against Denver last night, it goes to show you that they're a team that still has it. And a lot of people want to sit there and say, "Oh, it's a fire sale." People don't understand how deep this team is with talent. The guys we have at 905 right now.
Oh yeah.
There's so much talent on this team that what looks like a fire sale to people is us making room to bring up our talent. Yep. So wait till you see what Alize Johnson's going to do. Wait till you get a little more Malachi Finn time.
Yeah.
You're going to see that we've got so much going on. And I think Kyle's going to be a little more renewed now that he's still here. And it's all back to in Masai we trust. I think if they go out and they grab one of those big men, I'd like, obviously, Drummond. And if I can't get Drummond, then I'm going to push hard for Hassan Whiteside if he does get bought out. You add one of those guys down the middle. It's going to take a lot of pressure off Aaron Baines because he doesn't have to start anymore. And you start a guy with that, and you've got Boucher there. Your wings are solid pieces. If you spread the offense out and you don't put so much pressure on Pascal, this is a team that can, and they've already done it this year, they'll run off 8 wins in a row. And if they run off 8 wins in a row right now, they're in the 6th spot. So I look at them to be, they're not even a dark horse. They're a shining white horse running down the hillside and the sun's beaming down on them. That's what I look like. That's what they look like. So I'll take them in the East for sure. The Rams.
Yeah, I agree with that. Health and safety protocols is what hurt them. This last losing streak, right? Is that they couldn't have Pascal and others out there with them doing the dirty work that we do every night when we play normal, regular teams and everybody's fully healthy and staffed. Yeah. I definitely think you're right. Yes, not so much a dark horse, definitely a white lights, coming towards definitely a better position. I'd probably see them ending up the season probably in and around that 6-7 seed. Obviously, I'd prefer for them to be at 6 so they don't have to play that one game at the 7-10 play in. The other team that I was going to mention kind of actually is coming out of the West is the Golden State Warriors. A lot of people wrote them off. They weren't looking good. They've turned it on and it turned a bit of a corner here. I still think they have a lot to prove in this league. This also is, I think, the year where that team is going to lose some of those players because I think Curry's coming off contract at the end of this season.
I think he might be.
He might have a player. He might have an option. I'm not sure.
I think there's still an option, yeah.
But who knows where he could go? He could go anywhere.
Yeah.
He could walk onto the Lakers if they want to pay the cap money for him, and they could win 3 more championships with LeBron. I think they still have a lot to show the league in there. I think they're sitting around 9 or 8 right now, and I think they're going to squeeze in and maybe make a little bit of a push. I just don't know that they're going to be physical enough to match up with some of those bigger teams that happen in the West, in the 1 through 5 seeds.
Well, I kind of agree with you with Golden State. The Oubre experiment hasn't really worked out that well for them. A guy can score the ball. They paid a lot for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
They gave up a lot for him. And then, you mix him in with Wiggins. They've got a lot of guys that are, like each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing that's been hurting them this year. I think they were expecting a heck of a lot more out of Oubre in terms of scoring and maybe a little more defense.
Yeah.
I think he did hit a double-double one time this year. I actually bet on it and won the bet.
Nice.
But, they are a definite wild card because you're seeing that they hung with the Lakers when LeBron was there. They've beaten them a couple times this year. They've beaten Denver this year. They've beaten Portland this year. So they have that ability to hang around with these teams. And at the end of the day, Curry gets hot from deep, and he's just going to drain them all day long. There isn't anyone that is going to keep up with that pace. And, if they sneak in there and they're in that 10 spot and they play that 7 seed, I can definitely see them winning that game. But then you're going up against teams at the top that have already tooled up, whether you're going up against a Utah or a Denver or the Clippers or the Lakers. Now, second season, there's a bit more of the beating of the chest, so different ball game. And I don't think, as much as Draymond wants to say he's the best defensive player ever, I don't think he'll be able to stop any of those freight trains that are going to come down that lane on him. And he is a guy that gets dunked on a lot. So, Draymond, if you're listening, step up, son.
He's not the Draymond of 2015 to 2018 seasons. He's lost a bit of a step, and I couldn't agree more with Oubre. I mean, he just hasn't showed what he had in past,
but he's a nice piece. He's a nice piece.
He's good, and maybe there's just not enough there for him, to really have that investment. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks and how these trades settle in. But I think that's a wrap for us. So, we want to thank everybody. Tomorrow we are going to be back with the NCAA. We are going to be previewing the Sweet 16, which is just going to be it's like smelling the steak and and hearing that sizzle. There's a lot to be desired in the Sweet 16. A lot of teams that probably shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
And a couple that are still there. But we're going to be covering that tomorrow at 9 o'clock, so please join us tomorrow. Subscribe, put that little bell on. We'll be live on YouTube tomorrow with that breakdown of the Sweet 16, which is happening Saturday. And then I believe we're back on Sunday also previewing the Monday's Elite 8 games.
Yeah.
So be sure to join us for that as well, as we have full coverage on NCAA. For everybody here at Offside and Out of Bounds, I'm Adam.
I'm Junior.
See you real soon.